And so it's like that with life, but just bringing it back into a thing is that I've always wanted to help people no matter what I did. Because even this, when I allegedly wrote papers for other people, I was telling myself that I only actually took a certain type of people I would write papers for, was people who were overwhelmed, that didn't have really the capacity, that had families, and they needed a degree.
Welcome back to Biz In Demand. And listen, this is where we have business conversations right from the source. Because we know in business, we want to fill ourselves with value and we want to constantly get it right from the source. And today, I have a special guest with. Listen, I'm not even going to go through the whole wraparound and introduce it. I'm going to let him introduce himself. But we're going to get into how $3.4 million of grant money was able to be accessed by a business straight from this man right here. So introduce yourself for me.
My name is Willie Finklin. I'm a certified fundraising executive. I've been in the nonprofit field for over 12 years. I have raised over 18 million in development funds with over 16 million in grants. I have started my own nonprofit called Striving for Success, which was a STEM nonprofit. I've been on boards and leadership. My career path was kind of higher education. I worked as an enrollment counselor, a recruiter, assistant director of admissions. Did a little stint in the workforce area as a WIA counselor, so I know kind of that state system side as well. And then transitioned in the nonprofit field. And that was after joining a board and being a little interested in it, and then kind of the legend grew between me writing grants and being in that space. And I just found that it was just a space that was very meaningful. And then, I've worked as a grant writer for a couple organizations. Even though, oddly, grant writing is not my favorite thing to do in the nonprofit space, I really liked program development, actually building the programs and the organization, which ultimately builds the infrastructure for you to get grants. And I think people miss that a lot, where they want to pursue the money, but they don't always take time to build the organization to support that. So you can't put something on top of something that has weak infrastructure. But we'll probably dig into that a little later. And then now I'm just into a space of being a nonprofit consultant, where I help people to start their own nonprofit with something called the Nonprofit Lunch. It's a 100% co-designed with you, 100% done for you approach to starting a nonprofit. So basically, if you were to come to me and say like, hey, I want to do something in, affordable housing, I kind of got an idea. We would just talk it through with some of the things that you want to do, and then I'll kind of spin it and put the sauce on and know what people are looking for in that space. I'll build out 3 programs. I'll do all the pre-post test surveys or whatever is needed, put program descriptions to that, but also too, on even building up to that, all the stuff as far as incorporating it, getting your EIN number, your 1023,
all the structures needed,
solicitation, all the organizational stuff for you to be ready, in addition to the programs, in addition to sample grants, job descriptions, and the whole 9, where you're handed a packaged nonprofit that you can run with and then also consult with you for a year. Good. So that's what I do there. And the other part of what I'm doing is actually capacity building, where I have a symposium that I co-founded with my partner, Dr. Wendy Norfleet. And she and I just came together after actually sitting down for one of these and talking, and just saw we had some similar interests and wanted to do it. So we're actually having our second one tomorrow, out of all things.
Nice. And I'll be in attendance.
Yeah, and we just wanted to help not only professionals in the field to learn more and to have an opportunity to sharpen their skills, but also those aspiring individuals who want to start, and also those budding nonprofits that are starting but don't know quite the pathway they need to go to the success. We want to help them refine their approach and give them the skills that they need in order to grow and scale their nonprofit and to be more effective. Outside of that, I also do capacity building trainings for foundations who want to help to build the skills of those people applying. So it's just like we want to improve the quality of the applications, and that's another space I'm probably going to explore a lot more this year. But I've done a couple so far actually this year for Jacksonville Public Education Fund. I did one for teachers who are applying for this fellowship grant. It's a raving response came back from that.
How does that benefit? And we're gonna get into it. We're gonna get into him a little deeper, but he just made me think of something. How does that benefit the company when they're able to improve the applicants?
So a couple things like this. When you improve the applicants, one, you want to fund work. It's like this. There has to be an objective system. There are some people who say that they are, so when you have an organization that's well established, they have grant writers, they have things, they're doing work, and they get money because they have the capacity to do it and put their story out there. But it may be another deserving organization that has the sauce with their program, has the things, they're doing good work and doing everything, but they can't articulate it on paper.
Wow.
It's almost like being like a lawyer, where you know the law, you know how to defend, you can debate, you can litigate and all that stuff, but you can't quite pass the bar. Yeah. So, like we know you got the skills to do it, but we just need you to pass the test.
Yeah, that's good.
That grant application is the test. Wow. So, if you can pass this test, we can legitimately give you the work.
That's good.
So it's, I have seen on the other side where they want to fund organizations, but the organizations, they just don't put their words on paper right.
Yeah, that's big. That's big. And I think from, you have to have a certain perspective of expertise. You think from an organization standpoint. Which is really good. Let's take it all the way back. Before you were, because you have a well-established career at this point. But we all know that well-established careers don't just
happen like that.
Take us back before the well-establishment, where you were trying to find yourself and figuring out what you like to do. How was that time period? How were you able to form this vision and position that you're in now?
I would say my first real job was University of Phoenix, but it was a sales job.
For real?
Really, yeah. And I say the two. I did a couple customer service jobs because I moved. I think we had an offline conversation about me, living in South Florida for a couple years. South Florida was a wild time, and it's one of those things. I think many people, either gravitate to just staying in their hometown or they want to leave. And that's pretty much the consensus where I'm from, which is like Vero Beach, a little small city in Florida on the East Coast, directly across from Tampa. So most of the people didn't want to leave, but I know that I always wanted to actually live in South Florida. I actually remember 7th grade, Mrs. Thomas, home ec class, actually where you wanted to be. I chose 2 cities. One was San Diego because the average temperature was 78 degrees, and the other one was I wanted to live between Miami and Fort Lauderdale, but not in either one of them. And I didn't even know the city.
That's like Hollywood, ain't it?
Actually,
or something like that.
Yeah. That's where my uncle lived.
Wow. So you wanted to stay in that area.
Yeah.
So that must you enjoyed it.
Yeah. And it's like I must have manifested that thing. So like my uncle called me like, hey, nephew, why don't you come down, try it out or whatever? And I was at that time where I think I was just in college and I just had switched my classes online. Yeah. And I just had transitioned from my job. I'm like, you know what? This would be a perfect time.
What were you majoring in?
Business.
Business?
Yeah, business and HR. And the funny thing is, my favorite, what I wanted to do in HR was, because I got 2 concentrations in the HR. I wanted to do basically employment law. And that's the lowest. I made a C in it. That was my lowest grade.
Hey, I bet you that stuff's so dry, ain't it? That stuff is dry.
I don't like it. I don't like it.
Yeah.
So when I transitioned down, bringing it back to South Florida, so I had an opportunity. I worked at a couple call centers. That was like my little thing. And then eventually University of Phoenix gave me a call, and talking to them, I'm like, okay. And they were saying like, oh, we got this. And then they was like, yeah, and education, is, your tuition would be free. I was like, free?
That's all they need.
That made me lean in.
That's
okay,
all
you can live with that. Because the funny thing was, I actually had finished all of my courses except one. It was, I went to Warner Southern, which is a small Christian college in Lake Wales. And they had basically a physical education requirement. And I was telling myself, oh man, I'm going to go take this gym class or whatever. And when University of Phoenix said it, because I sat on my degree for over a year, and when they said that education was free, man, I studied 2 weeks and passed the test. I passed it. I mean, I could have been did this. Yeah, we're gonna wrap this up. Yeah. Because I'm gonna go in this thing and run this up.
That's good. That's
so good. That started my professional career, and the short, just fast forwarding, that gave me a base in education. Then I ended up transitioning back to like my hometown area, and I took a job at Florida Atlantic University as assistant director of admissions at their Port St. Lucie campus. Now I came to a crossroad there, because I actually was accepted into Geico's management program, which they would have taught me all facets of the business, from the claims, customer service, and management, and you were guaranteed a management position. And now that was in Lakeland, which was outside of my hometown, Tampa. So I had good reasons to go back there. Yeah. But it was literally like a Friday. I got up and I prayed, and I was like, Lord, like I got all these reasons to be back in Tampa. My family reunion there, my nephews, I'm from there. Like, I do have some ties in that city, but if it's not meant for me today, to go there, somebody need to call me today. Because at that point, I was like, jobless, just seeing if I was going to stay in South Florida, making my next move. About noontime, FAU called me for an interview, like, I have applied to so many jobs, I didn't know who the hell was calling me.
Yeah, that's how it be. That's how it is. I remember those days. And FAU is in Miami, right?
Boca Raton is the main campus, but it is South Florida, and they do have campuses around there, extended campuses in Broward. And then they had a satellite campus. They had two basically in St. Lucie County. One was the Port St. Lucie campus, and then another one was Harbor Branch, which is a research institution that they bring in a lot of dollars from that. So when I on that call, like after I got off, I was like, okay, got a job. Wait a minute. I gotta accept a job interview and give up a job? But you can't question what you prayed for. Like, I literally just prayed for that. So, I mean, kind of from there, I went there, worked there, learned a lot, started networking. Fast forward, I met... I ended up transitioning because our campus closed down, kind of that transition from the community colleges being state universities. Pretty much that was an outlier campus, and it had mainstream degrees, like criminal justice, nursing, business. So eventually people just went to the cheaper choice, and they kind of ran us out. So their president was brilliant how they did it. But I won't even get into it, but it was just brilliant. He absorbed our campus, and so from there, I went into career services, and then I just happened to be met somebody who was on a board of directors, and he invited me to basically come to a board meeting. I ended up joining that board, then from that point, I ended up writing grants for them because it was a small nonprofit, basically short.
Now, were you already trained at this point on grant writing? So you got in there just to get your hands dirty. And
my only, I would say training, allegedly, if somebody needed a paper written, I could write to a Rubik.
Gotcha.
And I never made less than a 91.
Hey, and let's touch on a couple principles real quick, because I'm really big on the principles of things, right? And you touched on really two important ones. The first one you touched on, where you talked about, you had that decision of, do I need to stay within something that I'm comfortable in, and I know the people, my family here, and this is set up for me, or do I need to be somewhere else? So what you did was you prayed about it. And I think a lot of times as in the world of business, we negate the fact that the spiritual aspect of what we do is just as important as the physical part of it.
I absolutely agree. And I would say this, whether you have a spiritual base or you don't, make decisions based upon your destiny, not your feelings.
I like that.
So if you have something that you're aspiring to go to, see yourself being, you make the choices that align with that, and not just the easy, comfortable choice. Because I would say Tampa, it was opportunities, and I actually passed up Tampa twice on a later opportunity, and I will tell you about that. But it was really about my my growth. And I saw too out of Geico, it was just one of those things where I can say that it was a great opportunity, but it was something that probably my heart never would have been into, you know, to make money. And it was like, and I was a beast then too, like, you know, like I'll work like 70, 80 hours, like one nothing.
Yeah.
And so like in that, and unlimited overtime is what attracted to me that, but I didn't really see where I could really do something as meaningful that, because it's always been a side of me that wanted to be able to contribute and give back.
That's
so
good.
Higher education has always been my thing, because I have really two tenets of what I really feel that are very important. One is education and really, you know, anti-poverty, and I think that education is a means to fight poverty. So whether that's certification, whether that's some type of craft, that's some type of trade, and it doesn't have to be a 4-year degree. I mean, it's things you can learn in 6 months now and make 6 figures. You know, and that's just a pathway, and reason why I also started my nonprofit, because when I was working for FIT, which also gave me a taste of Jacksonville when I was a recruiter, I had a chance to see like students who are going on internships making $25 an hour. Wow. And that's just an internship. So it's like, what are they making for their job? You know, then I'm thinking about, you know, like going into inner cities and things like that. And I was actually at a Tampa high school, and one of the kids was like, oh, I want, you know, like I'm real interested in being an engineer. But by the time they were in the 12th grade, you've missed the bios, the chemistries, and the maths and other things that you could have taken. So now your pathway is a little different, which kind of reminded me of me, where I got to a point in my bachelor's degree where I missed taking elementary statistics. So I had to go back and take that to, you know, where I couldn't go to actually a FAU program. And that's why I ended up going to Warner Southern, because I'm like, I'm not going back to take these 2 classes for this degree, which also connected back to like, okay, we need to educate these youth at a lot younger age so they can make the choice and kind of be thinking about their future and not just when they get to a point of high school, you know? So that's a lot of what went into it. And I actually found research to support that, where it says like if you introduce middle school kids or introduce a child to STEM disciplines by the 8th grade, they're twice as likely to go to take a STEM major than just their math and science alone. So having a capacity for math and science alone doesn't dictate it. It's about exposure to it. Knowing those options, knowing what's out there, and giving them a chance to kind of see, touch, feel those things. And that's what I want to do, because this could lead to them coming out with a lot of the STEM jobs easily 70,000 plus. Wow. You know, that does a lot for their family.
Hey, and what I hear too, I hear a lot, and a later question that I was going to get into was what drove you into or what, you know, inspired you to take the direction of the nonprofit space. But I hear it because literally, since we've been talking, even just what you explained, it had nothing to do with you.
Right.
It was more about the building of others, you know. Is that an important quality to have when you're in the nonprofit space?
I would say yes. People have their motives, they have their reasons. And I can say this, like, you know, I'm not going to judge, like, you know, who has the purest motives and all this stuff, but a lot of people do want to have the space, but it's not a space. I see some people who really want to go out there and get rich, but I'll tell you this. I think all of us have kind of did one of those little pyramid multi-marketing. Multi-tier marketing
it's like, let's try this one.
Yeah, let's try this. Like, you know, but I'll tell you this, it's broken down into like a lot of the recruitment. I remember one that I was doing, I think it was like Your Travel Biz or something back then, but they had
that
like
sound like one too.
Yeah. I had some amazing vacations. And I can say this, they had kind of this like, you know, paradigm, basically psychology of buyers, you know, and people. Okay. And even University of Phoenix was like my first personality test. They had one called the color code. Wow. And I was, you know, basically in their thing, like basically the red was kind of like the go-getters, atypical people. Oh yeah, absolutely. The white was the peacemakers, you know, there weren't too many of them in a selling space. The yellow was the fun people, and then the blue was kind of like the glue team person or whatever. Yeah. So I was a blue-white, which I was the only one on there. So I was the glue and the peacemaker. Gotcha. But I could also sell. I was always top 3 on my team.
That's something I've never, even as a business owner, I still that I'm constantly working on the selling. Even though my space, I don't really have to sell. I have to do more communicating the value. But I guess that's still selling.
Yeah. And I'll tell you how I excelled at selling. It wasn't just my. It's like this. We had a formula. You get this many calls. It's basically a formula. You get this many calls. You get this many appointments. You get this many what you call them. The where they wanted us between like 80 and 100 calls. I only made like 40 to 60.
Your
but it's one of those.
Was high.
But the reason why my conversion was high was the referrals.
Oh, okay.
And the referrals are a high turnover. So it was times where they'll come out there with one referral. I'll come out there with a page and on the back.
Wow.
Of people, because I can tell you, and it works like that in nonprofit field. Hey, Toya told me to give you a call. She just signed up for school, and she said you mentioned it. Like, why don't you tell me a little bit about what your plans are?
Wow.
So it's just like this. I have always been one of those people. Don't put me in the boxes the same other people. Tell me my goals and allow me some leeway of how to get there.
Yeah.
And that's how I function better. And I was able to do that. But going back to kind of the color codes and what I was leading to about your travel biz, you kind of have those, and I was just kind of like a little sore thumb on there. But in this one with your travel biz, it was 4 types. It was the sharks, who was all about money. It was the whale, who wanted to care for people. It was a dolphin that wanted to have fun. And it was the sea urchin, which was an information person.
Okay.
So whether it's another one, it's like a triangle, a circle, a squiggly line, but it's all those same personalities. And that's how you sell people based upon, or get them to come to your cause based upon what is important to them.
Gotcha.
If they want to make money, you talk to them about the money they want to make. If they want to help others, like me, the whale, like, money don't appeal to me.
You
but like, what about else? If you're able to elevate yourself, you're able to help others. Like, wouldn't that be good? Like, my mama do need a little renovation at her house. And then the dolphins were fun people. Just like, money don't really, I ain't trying to help nobody, but hey, you can get free cruises.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about that. The sea urchin, like, they kind of got to get a rational whatever information and whatever resonates with them, but they got to have the information. If you don't feed them information to make a decision. Yeah, that decision, then they're not good with just the emotional aspect of it. And so it's like that with life, but just bringing it back into a thing is that I've always wanted to help people no matter what I did. Because even this, when I allegedly wrote papers for other people, I was telling myself that I only actually took a certain type of people I would write papers for, was people who were overwhelmed, that didn't have really the capacity, that had families, and they needed a degree.
Yeah.
So so even in that, it was still about helping people and not making money.
Yeah.
But if you could do it, it's like, why you need me for?
Exactly.
You're just being lazy.
Exactly. Are you a believer in the fact that when you pursue, because you talked about destiny earlier, making decisions off of your destination versus your emotion, do you feel like when you pursue your purpose, your destination, the money is gonna follow along with that?
Absolutely. This is a faith principle, like they say, like, God has 1,000 cattle on 1,000 hills. So there's provision everywhere you go, but the provision, it could be a skinny cow, it could be a fat cow, So the meat of that cow, if you're really led to where you need to be, will be abundant, But even if you made the wrong choice on your your emotion, it could be, on the skinny side, but then again, it could work out well. But wherever you're led to with your faith, it's going to be more than enough provision, because that's where you're meant to be. It's like this: if you put a plant, a subtropical plant, in another place, like, sometimes it still can survive and get along and grow still, but that's not where it's meant to thrive.
Exactly.
You want to put yourself in an ideal environment that is conducive to your skill set, that's conducive to what your strengths, and not just because you can do it. But not at the same time, too, sometimes you got to, life is like this. You either got to choose if you want to pursue your passions first, then the money, or your money, then the passions. Because if you pursue something that you're very capable of doing, that is very lucrative, then you'll have the funds later to pursue your passions and don't have to really worry about it. But if you pursue your passions, eventually you're going to get to a point like, you know what, I need to retire.
Yeah.
So it's still all about having a plan of like what part are you going to do it, because at some point in life, you kind of got to figure out, okay, what is my life beyond this? I can't work forever.
Exactly.
But also, too, on more the spiritual, or I would say your highest self, when you look at Maslow hierarchy of needs, that you have to like, what am I leaving to this world?
Exactly.
What did I make better? So that self-actualization has to come in. No matter if you pursue money or pursue your passion, you still got to think about your legacy, what you're going to give, and what is going to be fulfilling to you.
Exactly.
Because I found so many times that I went after things that people thought that I should have or I could do, and even people I dated, like, would this person be acceptable to my family? But at the end of the day, that person need to be acceptable to you, so you're happy, because your family opinion doesn't really matter.
Exactly.
So a lot of people are making choices between homes, cars, careers, based on making other people happy, and they're miserable.
I like that. That's really good. And I'm all about if I need to make a show just where we could talk like those principles, because I know how heavy and monumental those things is. Let me ask you a question. When it comes down to your legacy, what kind of legacy do you want to leave behind?
I want to leave a legacy of helping others to achieve their dreams, which ultimately helps me achieve. Because there is something vicarious through other people's successes, and knowing that you gave them the ability to make a difference and be their best self. And this kind of goes back to, when I was a program manager at the first nonprofit I worked for, I was one of those people that I tried to like do everything for everybody. Yeah. And then what I realized is that I was really robbing them out of their growth experience. Because you don't learn until you have a challenge that's beyond your ability, either in information or just capacity or creativity that you just never pushed.
That's it.
But it's like, when you gym, you drop a little bit more weight on there and you help them lift it. The next times they're able to lift it themselves. As long as they keep on practicing, they're able to lift it themselves.
Sometimes they can even lift it,
and they just don't know psychologically. It hasn't been unlocked. And I'll tell you something a little bit about that. I had developed my nonprofit over the course of about 5 years. When I say that everything, I had a business plan that was so robust that I made 3 years out of grants from it. I didn't even have to write a grant the first time. Programs, job descriptions, organizational charts, everything a person would need. I literally gave this to someone. I was actually in Atlanta for a trucking convention. I met someone out of all places from Fort Pierce.
Wow.
That was there. And then they introduced me to somebody, and she was telling me about it. And I told her about what I did. She was like all excited, happy. I gave it to her. I didn't get a reply back, thank you. So I know she didn't do not a thing. So that also told me that it was more than just giving someone information that was needed. You need that accountability, you need that hand holding, you need to have people go through, because we all are busy or find ourselves, being busy. Because I mean, like, it's like this, even recently, I gave away some access to grant courses. And I, people are like, oh yeah, I want to learn grant writing. And out of probably about the 12 tickets that are in there, only 3 people even open, logged in more than one time. And that's
how I did. I got courses on my site. It's the same way. Yeah.
And that's not to say, anything against them, because I think a lot of people mean well, but a lot of people don't follow through. So that's why you got to have an accountability partner. But I can say this, breaking down some principles. First, making a destined decision over, over your feelings, or be led to where you need to be. From there, put yourself in a position to grow in capacity.
Yeah. Ooh. Break that growth in capacity.
And I did that by starting to write grants for organizations. The first grant that I ever wrote, I did not get, but the feedback that I got. The next 17 grants I wrote were all approved, just from the feedback. So I guess the third step will be, don't be scared of failure.
I'm about to say that fear, because you talked about a lot of fearlessness.
There should be no fear in failure, because you're not going to be perfect. we feel that we have to be this, like, okay, I can't even take credit for this, but my girl Katrina Nicole just said this on one of her lives. If you waited till it's perfect, you waited too long.
Waited too long.
So you have to give yourself the grace to grow. That same grace we be giving to other people. Oh, girl, it's all right.
Yeah.
You try, but you ain't gonna try.
No.
So, because it's like this. One of the lessons that I learned real early in life, which I would say would apply back to even to the person who taught me the lesson. Like, people gonna talk about you one way or the other. If they, can't talk about your failure of you doing something, when you're successful, they'll talk about something that happened in your childhood just to talk about you.
Yep.
So either way, you're not gonna make everyone happy. So you have to learn to live with the roar of the crowds and the boos and still be a champion.
Yeah. Yep.
So
that's good.
So with that, overcoming fear of failure and going through it, I can say definitely you should have systems and processes in place. There is no peace without a process. So in your business, you got to have systems and processes.
There is no peace without a process. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not.
It's chaos. And I mean, and even this, I know a lot of us are giving. It's like this. Even have a system for like I'm gonna only give out like 5, free things, or this is the criteria for me to give. Where you do have some objective thing where you're just not, doing things based on feelings all the time. Or even when you make a decision to make to have a business partner, these are the attributes I need them to have.
That's good.
So you have some criteria to make better objective decisions where they're not emotional based. But I say mentorship is one of the biggest things. I had really a trucking company. I still have, and I'm actually in the process of stepping back for it because it's like the administrative side. Oh boy, I'm flawless.
It's a lot.
I'm a beast on that. I passed my new insurance audit first time around. Them books was right, and that actually goes back to University of Phoenix. I was not the we had a person who would check our files. I became so good at checking files. That person was coming to me to check the file.
Wow.
So when it came to that, and even at when I worked for Career Source, we had this thing where you basically had like findings, and then basically I'll say infraction. I can't remember it, but it's basically like a slap on the wrist. That's our policy, and then it's like you violated federal policy. And the way that most funding come down is like the feds kind of give you a bare bones, the state adds on, and then the local place adds on even more.
You have to meet.
But the fed stuff that they say the minimum you got to have, you supposed to have.
Okay. So
when it came down to me doing that, I actually enrolled so many people that they had 9 in my files, and they only pulled 20 files. So from the other 3 locations in other counties, only 11 files came in. All my files were perfect.
Gosh.
Flawless. People who've been there like 12, 16 years, they had findings in their highest infraction, but I was always good at the paperwork side. I just struggle with people for a couple reasons. One, I think I be wanting more for other people, and I kind of understand I'm
more
over
than what they want.
Yeah, so I need me a little operations manager in there. I always say like, I need my little a-hole there. Because it's like this, when people see that you're nice, they try to run over you. But like a lot of times, you got to give people, you got to let them out versus drawing them back in. It's so much more leverage, plan to make sure. But that's another story. But I think really coming back to kind of what we're talking about, the mentorship really does help, and it helped me grow in the span with the trucking business, where they taught me techniques and other things that I could have stumbled upon. Because I'll say this, the information is out there. You can, if you have time to do all that, but sometimes having the systems and having the experience where people already took the stumbles or whatever, I ain't got to go out here and bump my head to learn. I can just hear I can hear how you bumped your head, and I'm just fine dodging that pain. But a lot of the information that's out there is not synthesized for you to really learn in the way you do, and it can be so overwhelming when you kind of get into the analysis paralysis. Or the imposter syndrome that I don't know if I can do this. Yes, you can, but you're just taking on too much and trying to do too much, or it's other things that really, until you get into the journey. Because I always tell people like this, it's just like, a mountain is in your way. you know, from you getting to your destination. But once you get halfway around the mountain, meaning start the journey, now you can see other possibilities that you couldn't see on this side of the mountain. But we're so stuck with how we're gonna get past this mountain that we never start our journey to even see the other possibilities.
Exactly. And how much you're gonna learn just from the halfway point.
Yeah.
That's gonna catapult you to the rest of the journey.
Yeah, and if you didn't take that part of the journey, that's gonna really prepare you for something on the other side.
Exactly.
That's how life is. The things that we learn on the lower levels is to equip us for the higher levels. You know, and people want this one of the little ladies, you know, at the local store said this. If you do it the long way, you'll never forget it.
You'll never forget it.
And that stuck with me. And that's just like, you know, because even like math, you know, you can learn the shortcuts, but if you do it the long way in case you have to do it, you know how to do it.
Exactly.
You know, so really learning the process out and learning, you know, the way that it should be really helps you to perform, you know, versus always learning the shortcut and actually needing that other thing, because people want to get to the money.
Yeah, quickly, but hey, one thing about that process, the process gives you the character. It gives you the resilience.
Exactly.
Like, you need the process.
And that's the part that people miss. And it's so funny you said that, because a lot of these places that do like high ticket sales and all this, they teach you about resilience. Because you being you, if you just think that, oh, once I learn to make money, I'm gonna blow up and, you know, I'm never gonna have no problems, and you don't have any character, any emotional intelligence, any discipline in what you're doing, then once you get to these dilemmas, you're gonna fall apart. Who expected COVID?
That's what I'm saying.
Who expected that? You know, who expected like certain things to happen?
Event, like,
and it's like, how you gonna respond? You know, even so too. I can say with my trucking company, at one point, this major company owed me like 28 grand. Like, who expected that in my business for my because I mean, in business we think like, oh, they're gonna get paid. Now think about this too, y'all. How many of y'all don't pay y'all bills on time?
Yeah.
So you think business is gonna pay you on time all the time?
And don't think just because they a big name that your check gonna be.
It don't be the worst one. It was one of those. That was the person who owed me 28 grand. I know y'all got it. So, you know, so it's just like this, me having 28 grand outstanding of payables. If anybody ate, I ate last. I made sure my drivers were paid. I made sure my contractors was paid. You know, I made sure my bills was paid. And as a leader, sometimes you have to eat last.
Yeah. Oof.
You know?
Sometimes you have to eat last.
If you are a true leader, you got to be willing to eat last.
Gosh. Hey, if y'all ain't taking notes in this conversation, I'm ashamed of y'all. I'm ashamed of y'all, because y'all getting the whole $1 million play. And before we wrap up, I do want to talk about you let me know off camera that one of your biggest grant deals was around 3.4 million. Let's talk about that a little bit. What did the company have to have in place for that type of grant to go through, and then what type of energy did you have to put into that grant to get it approved?
I can say a couple things. When it came to that one, it was United Way grant. It was actually right here, and I can't remember the exact amount, but I would say, let's say 3.2 low end.
Okay.
But it was like 3.2, 3.4. It was for full service community schools. So one, they had to have a good program in place, and then also two, the organization had to be stable. They had to have like the compliance stuff. They had to have some years of managing grants, because those are things that go into the play of them being able to trust you, clean financials, systems and processes. Because it goes back to an organization of that magnitude really have to, you know, like they have the things in place, and because of their sheer size and girth of their budgets, that they're able to command a grant like that. So if your budget is $100,000, people probably ain't gonna trust you with $3 million. So, you know, for the most part, they like to give up to like 20, maybe 30% of your overall budget.
Okay.
Now, on the other side, what made me very unique and capable, I can tell you this. For the 3 and I'll say 3/4 years, you know, I was at Children's Home Society as a senior grant writer. My goals probably culminated to being about $450,000 thousand. I'll say, I'll even give it 5. I brought in over 12.8 million in that organization. So you can do the math for the percentage that I exceeded my goals. And I eclipsed like one time the whole team goal by 458%. I actually got that on one of my posts on my social media. And what made me very unique, and funny thing was, we were a 4-person team, and going back to those personalities, they had a little personality test. I can't remember theirs, but we as a small team covered all four, so we were very unique.
Well-rounded.
So that was like the HR person was actually astounded, like, wow, this is the first time this small of a team covered all the spectrum. So me and another person, we were kind of on the, we like the easy goers, and I said this to you off camera too. It's 2 type of people. It's people who can follow the path that's laid. Even grant writers are like that. Sometimes they can come in, they can follow like these are the grants we did the last 5 years, this whatever. They can kind of follow that. And then you have grant writers who can see more than what is there and that can build. You also have people like that say like, hey, this is what I'm thinking or whatever. Then you're like, you know what? This can come together. This can come together. Like we can do this. I seen like a little program and other things that I can build, because that's how I built even my program. I went, I'll tell you this, the good borrow, the best steal. And that's just a fancy. The good borrow and the best steal. And that's the way just to say, don't reinvent the wheel. So you want something that is innovative enough that people like, oh yeah, that's nice, but you don't want to be so maverick that it's unproven. So I took a lot of my program design from when it was like 2008-ish when Arnold Schwarzenegger was the governor of California. They had a big digital push, so I looked at a lot of their programs out there. In Washington, they had the Puget sound off, so I took some stuff from there, from the curriculum voice with stuff, and I even swung it back over to Baltimore for wide angle youth. And looking at some of the things that they did with the digital media and other things, and I built my programs around that. And I also saw where, there was a mobile unit. Now, funny thing, I had this idea for a mobile unit called Moby Digi, was going to be like a reading program, but also tutoring and other things, and taking, and going to like low income communities. And I'm sitting here with this thing. I don't thought about it for about 3-4 years. I'm watching the Super Bowls. I think it was the Broncos and somebody played. And then it was this lady on there talking about, it's a Microsoft commercial. This whatever bust. I'm like, ain't this about nothing.
Hey, they had the money to go ahead and make it go right there.
But and I actually went down. She was out of West Palm. She was on Oprah and everything, and I can't call her name right now, but she was like a retired teacher and some other things. Great story. But just bringing it back, like it's one of those things. It goes back to what we were saying earlier. Like if you wait too long, you wait till it's perfect, you definitely waited too long.
Yeah. And I like how you touched on, you said the good borrow and the best steal. Right. And that's literally, I used that strategy, me coming into the creative space, into a city that I was new to, and needed to perform at a high level. And I tell this story a lot, how with the clients I was working with then, the small businesses I was working with, I used to go to, when it was time to do their projects, I'll go to Nike ad campaigns, Dolce & Gabbana ad campaigns, their imagery, their graphics, and I will recreate what they're doing on these high level and bring it to these small businesses. So now these small businesses is looking like
major brands. You want to see what people are doing out there.
So I ain't trying to reinvent the wheel.
And it's the same thing I do in grants. Like, the old way that I would say, the way that I approach grants more times than not is that, especially if it's like a new space or something I'm doing. Even when I wrote my papers, I would read like 3 evidence-based research articles in that space. So looking at what other people talk about as practices, their wording, how they described it. Just kind of gave me ideas, and it's one of those things too, even going back to, high school, I used to make like D's and F's in grammatics in my grammar, but I used to make A for content. I knew how to express myself. I just couldn't put periods and commas between it. This whole English thing ain't for me. I just want to talk. I meant to be.
Man.
I meant to. Because I actually my first A in college was for speech.
That's
I'm just
good.
trying to speak this thing.
That's
You want
good.
me to break it up and be all fancy?
Yeah, I still have I'm looking at being a published author this year, which you don't have to be the best writer to be an author, but I do want to at least. I am taking a few classes to break me back down to my subject, predicate, verb, and all these other things, so I can maybe, just sharpen my skill set with that stuff.
You know what the crazy thing was? Sometimes the smallest recalibration can get you to your destiny or help you overcome a challenge. And we think we need to make these big leaps and bounds. That same teacher I made an A in for speech, she was an English teacher. She's like, why don't you take my class? What I'm like, okay, she's trying to make sure she get her money.
Yeah.
But I was like, yeah, I like her, whatever. And in that class, she used to require us to do like a subordinate conjunction, coordinate conjunction, and everything. And you know that once I start writing the different sentence structure on purpose within essays I was writing, now on tests, I'm not guessing that it's, semicolon, however, comma, versus like, oh, is it comma, however, comma?
Yeah.
Because just practicing the sentence structures in basically essays helped me to pass the test because I started recognizing how it's supposed to be. And then I was like, they didn't teach me this in high school.
Exactly. You like, this is where it makes sense.
I could have made a whole A in high school in English. But
man, and I was taking AP English, and I said, take me back to regular English. Like, there's no need for y'all to do all this with me. But that's good. But let's get into tell us about PM3 University.
Yeah, I would say now I've kind of evolved, and I'm thinking about my answer with the what you call it because I never rounded out. But it's basically I'm just one of those people that can go with the flow. I can build stuff that is not seen, and that helped me to write that grant where, like with the new money, that's the main thing that I was good at. Like people wanted to work with me because I didn't have to have all the answers without moving forward. So I could help create the answers, and a lot of times, if you just let me do it versus like going over here and struggling over it and just let me do it, which is part of my design, now I can get it done faster. But you want to struggle with it or just hold me up and then stress me out at the end writing it. If you just tell me kind of what you want, I can do it. And that what made me be able to get that new grant because most of that content I wrote was almost perfect where I really got little to no feedback because I knew about programs and I was able to write it, which brings me to PM3 University. With what I do there, that's why between what I told you earlier about me giving that person my whole business plan, my whole playbook, everything you needed to be successful, and they did nothing with it, realized that there has to be some accountability in addition to system process. There have to be some education. There has to be mentorship. There has to be structure. But at the same time, for those people who don't have time to figure all that out, I'm your huckleberry.
Exactly.
I can do it for you. I can figure it out. I know what these people are looking for, and one of the things that is like this, people, when they come to a grant writer, like, oh, they know they need money, but you're supposed to be the expert of your organization, not me.
Exactly.
I shouldn't be writing what your, purpose is, your principles or whatever. I should be articulating, I should be a reflection of your story. But you should know how you're intaking people. You should have those intake surveys. You should be able to tell me about what you're doing in your processes versus me making that up. Because it's like this, as a grant writer, if I'm not aligning with what you do, you should be able to correct me.
Yeah. Exactly.
So people confuse program development and grant writing all the time. If I'm building your organization while I'm writing a grant, I'm doing two different jobs. You got to understand that it's going to take me more. Can I do it? Yes. But should I be doing it? That's debatable in the sense that if I'm doing it, and it's taking me more time, you're paying me more for my time, to do it. But that's where many people fail is having, structure, systems, and processes and having that together in their grant. And that's why a lot of times they don't get to the point of success because they are running the nonprofit like a hustle, how some people run a business like a hustle.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And I do notice that a lot. I just kind of speaking on how that the education piece and the service piece, because a lot of times, even if a person just needs you to do that particular service.
Mm-hmm.
Providing that education piece, I've seen that it's almost like when you take your car to get fixed and the guy's just like, you need a new catalytic converter,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or he can say, hey, you need a new catalytic converter because that what controls this, and this gives the alternator a little more power. He gives you a little more
Mm-hmm.
foundation, which makes you more confident in the fact that I don't have to micromanage my process with you because I'm filling you in
Mm-hmm.
on how this service is gonna go and how things are gonna go. So you're not in the dark about it, you know.
Exactly.
And that's always a good position to hold because people want value. They want
Mm-hmm.
value, and they want to really work with the experts, you know. And once you establish the fact that you're an expert in it by things like the PM3 University, where you're giving so much value,
Yeah.
I'm sure people appreciate that.
And I've been on all types of facets. I mean, I've been an executive director in the field.
Mm-hmm.
I've been a grant writer. I've been a program manager. My first task in the nonprofit field when, how I ended up with the first job is that when I was a board member, I approached this organization for space in their building. And just me being me, and then running into this executive director again, she was like, well, what do you want to do? And I said, like, oh, man, I want to write grants. I want to create curriculum. I really want to help people. I want to, I just want to work in a space where what I'm doing is meaningful. She's like, I got the perfect job for you.
Mm.
And then she told me it was all those things. And like, and the crazy thing when we talk about destiny and providence, she's like, I done interviewed over 50 people. That job was waiting for me.
Oh, so she had already interviewed
50 people.
and then
Over
she told
50
you,
people.
I got the right job for you?
Yep.
Man.
I ran into her again at like a basically like a grant writing workshop. And then she approached me with that. And the crazy thing with that point, like people started approaching me with jobs. People just knew I was good at what I was doing. And my number they didn't budge on. They had the number. They gave me the number. I even had this one organization because they kind of worked they was like a paraeducation agency where they were going out in the community. They lacked a person of color.
That's what they needed.
But it's also evidence-based.
Seasoning.
Yeah, a little melanin. But also, too, it actually makes sense where, people trust, their own, because it's always seemed like a lot of times it's outsiders coming in and telling us what to do in our community. And it's not that I was coming in to persuade the community, but it's also, too, just to be open to the information. But I was like an ambassador for them, already, because basically their goal was basically 100% literacy by third grade. Or 90%. But at the same time, too, that's like, okay, if you can't read, you can't do the other stuff. So that was something I can get on board on. It's something that I know. I was a motivated reader because of them pizzas that they gave.
The bucket pizzas? Man, I used to love them. Man, I read so much because of the bucket. Get my sticker on there. I go right to Pizza Hut. Man,
by any means.
I don't know a lot of people remember those.
I probably told my age on that one.
Me too.
I don't know what they're giving out these days.
I had buckets of pens from that summer. But no, that's good. That's really, really good. Hey, I hope that y'all are able to pick up, because a lot of times, we have to tune our ears to hear the lesson and things. People tell their story. People tell their experience. And sometimes it's not about the details and what they're talking about. It's about the principles and the things that they're using to help catapult their career forward. So as we wrap up, definitely let the people know how they can get in contact with you. I know by the time we air this, the symposium is already going to be over with, but just let them know where they can come and connect with you.
PM3University.com. IG and Facebook is at PM3 University. My handle on LinkedIn is I am Pro Will. You can also find me that on my personal page on IG as well. But that's how you can connect with me. There will be another symposium because me and my partner are dedicated to doing it biannually. So that will be July 27th is our date for that. Good. More than likely it will be at Beaver Street, but it will be the same thing. But we will have this, same structure almost, but we're going to have a new topic or whatever that may be. So that's how you can connect with me on those platforms. And I'm looking forward to connecting with y'all. this year is going to be a lot more value on my page and content and things that I'm working on. But this is going to be an amazing year just to build on, to connect, to learn and grow. So I'm looking forward to all the possibilities.
That's good. That's good. And then we actually, being that you're having your symposium in July, you said? We're going to be bringing them back on Biz In Demand because we ain't really finished. I just don't want to give y'all too much at one time because I want y'all to come back, you know. So, yeah, we're definitely going to have you back later in the year just to kind of dig in a little bit more. But I definitely appreciate your conversation, coming on here, being transparent to me and the people. And this man is a wealth of knowledge. As y'all know, if you've seen other episodes, I do a lot of talking, but I was able to sit back and just listen. And I keep talking about those principle things because that's something that I prayed about a couple years ago when I understood how life is built off of following certain principles and certain things are already laid out. And he brought these things, how they impacted his life. So I hope y'all caught on to that. But yeah, this is another episode of Biz In Demand where we have business conversations right from the source. Till next time.